This is Seekster from Arlington, Texas, and this question is for Ron Paul. Now, I've met a lot of your supporters online, but I've noticed that a good number of them seem to buy into this conspiracy theory regarding the Council of Foreign Relations and some plan to make a North American union by merging the United States with Canada and Mexico. These supporters of yours seem to think that you also believe in this theory. So my question to you is, do you really believe in all this, or are people just putting words in your mouth?
90 seconds.
Well, it all depends on what you mean by all of this. The CFR exists, the Trilateral Commission exists, and it's a, quote, conspiracy of ideas. This is an ideological battle. Some people believe in globalism, others of us believe in national sovereignty. And there is a move on toward a North American Union, just like early on there was a move on for a European Union, and it eventually ended up. So we had NAFTA and moving toward a NAFTA highway. These are real things. It's not somebody made these up. It's not a conspiracy. They don't talk about it, and they might not admit about it, but there's been money spent on it. There was legislation passed in the Texas legislature unanimously to put a hold on it. They're planning on millions of acres taken by eminent domain for an international highway from Mexico to Canada, which is going to make the immigration problem that much worse. So it's not so much a secretive conspiracy. It's a contest between ideologies, whether we believe in our institutions here, our national sovereignty, our Constitution, or are we going to further move in the direction of international government, more UN? You know, this country goes to war under UN resolutions. I don't like big government in Washington. So I don't like this trend toward international government. We have a WTO that wants to control our drug industry, our nutritional products. So I'm against all that, but it's not so much as a sinister conspiracy. It's just knowledge is out there. If we look for it, you'll realize that our national sovereignty is under threat.
Congressman Paul, thank you.
You to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!" First, you've got to get mad. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore! First, you've got to get mad. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
The Council on Foreign Relations was formed in 1921. Some believe this is the most powerful private institution in the United States, if not the world. To become a lifetime member of the Council, you must be a U.S. citizen or resident, nominated in writing by another full member, and sponsored by 3 more. Despite these high standards, many people manage to join the CFR as lifetime members. I was surprised by how many of these individuals are celebrities, public faces in the news, movies, and business world. But you'll have to do a bit of research to find the members list, and odds are you'll never know what they talk about. A notorious secrecy clause prevents these world leaders from discussing their meetings. This secrecy is disturbing because the membership roster is so comprehensive. It reads like a who's who of the American elite. Consider that John McCain, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama are all members of the CFR. The CFR includes heads of state, captains of industry, the mainstream media, and even Angelina Jolie. Their stated goal is to represent the U.S. best interest abroad, increase America's understanding of the world, and contribute to U.S. foreign policy. But what does all that really mean, and how do they plan to do it? Here's where it gets crazy. Because of the permanent blackout of CFR news from the mainstream media, the average American has no idea what this group does or how it works. We can only guess, and in guessing, we must look to the history of this secret cabal. its predecessors, its founders, and the skeletons in its closet. Between 1915 and 1918, a group of 150 scholars called the Inquiry assisted President Woodrow Wilson as he tried to visualize the U.S.'s global role after Germany's defeat in World War I. Their research ultimately led to Wilson's 14 points, a strategy for global peace. When the scholars traveled to Paris in 1919, secret meetings between U.S. and British elites led to the formation of the Council on Foreign Relations in 1921. From that point on, the CFR gained more and more power over the U.S. government. Many people, not just conspiracy theorists, believe this organization completely controls U.S. foreign policy. Yet it is not a part of the government, and the general public has no control over CFR members. Even presidents may be at the CFR's beck and call. So what do these world leaders plan in secret? Many researchers think the CFR is part of a plan to create a one-world government, placing the entire planet under the control of an elite group of bankers, businessmen, and aristocrats. You may recognize the names of these leaders: the Morgans, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and the Warburgs, among others. They're commonly linked to conspiracy theories, but there's little proof. In fact, there's not much of anything. Since the Napoleonic War, no government has been able to trace the amount of influence these families wield. No one knows how much money these families control, or how many industries. Ultimately, most conspiracy theorists believe members of these families cooperated with the colonial magnate Cecil Rhodes in his imperialistic quest to expand the British Empire across the entire world. This is the same Cecil Rhodes who founded the Rhodes Scholarships, a prestigious award for well-connected students with an interest in improving the world. According to one popular tale, Rhodes left 7 secret wills to be read after his death. These wills laid the blueprint for a global secret society based on the practices of the Jesuits and the Freemasons. This group became known by several names. One of the most prominent is the Round Table Group. The CFR is allegedly the U.S. front for this organization. If this is true, the implications are disturbing. It means the U.S.'s most powerful foreign affairs lobby is designed to eliminate the U.S., transforming North America into a province of the future global government. In the process, members of the CFR work behind the scenes with groups the U.S. commonly considers enemies. Researchers present 2 chilling examples of this possibility. First, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Many revisionist historians believe the elements of the U.S. government allowed this disaster to occur because it motivated the population to wage war. Second, some sources have traced the business and financial connections of large industries and banks during World War II. They claim that several groups made money off both sides of the war. Follow the money, these researchers say, and you will find that one shadowy group created the situation leading to World War II. In the aftermath of this conflict, the same group consolidated their control over foreign governments. But who is this group? We still don't know. The idea of a centuries-old elite conspiracy is improbable, but not impossible. There aren't any monsters, ghosts, or aliens involved. Or are there? David Icke thinks the truth may be even stranger. This longtime conspiracy researcher believes the CFR is part of the Illuminati, and he believes that the Illuminati are in turn controlled by aliens from the Draco constellation. According to Icke, these aliens, who look like humanoid reptiles, have crossbred with human beings to create a group of hybrids. Icke believes these hybrids may be possessed by their alien masters and even change shape. So who exactly is a hybrid? According to Icke, many of the people in the CFR. Could this be true? Is the CFR just a concerned group of citizens who want to make America a better, safer place? Or is there something they don't want you to know?
Saddam Hussein aids and protects terrorists, including members of Al-Qaeda.
He has also given aid, comfort, and sanctuary to terrorists, including Al-Qaeda members.
All options are on the table.
My good friend, Senator Obama, that's a very provocative statement. You previously said that all options are on the table with respect to Iran. And I think that it's important for people to reflect on the real meaning of that you're setting the stage for another war.
Iran is an adversary. Their pursuit of nuclear weapons poses a grave threat to us.
If Iran had a nuclear weapon, it would be a dangerous threat to us.
have no doubt Iran possessing nuclear weapons will be a major threat to us.
Iran was a threat.
Iran is a serious threat if it gets nuclear weapons.
Iran is a threat.
We all know that Iran poses a threat.
And Iran will continue to be a threat.
Iran is a grave threat, major threat to us and to the region. I understand that, but they're in the process of developing it.
And will keep trying to develop nuclear weapons.
But they're in the process of developing it, and I don't think that's disputed by any expert. They are the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
The state sponsor of terror.
State sponsor of terrorism.
It is disputed
Hezbollah
by
and Hamas. The enemies that we're going to have to fight is not just terrorists, it's not just Hezbollah, it's not just Hamas. They are the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
It is disputed
Hezbollah
by
and Hamas. The enemies that we're going to have to fight is not just terrorists, it's not just Hezbollah, it's not just Hamas. The enemies that we're going to have to fight is not just terrorists, it's not just Hezbollah, it's not just Hamas. The enemies that we're going to have to fight is not just terrorists, it's not just Hezbollah, it's not just Hamas.
Ending our nukes. Who the hell are we going to nuke?
Senator,
tell me, Barack, who are you want to nuke?
I'm not planning to nuke anybody right now. Hezbollah and Hamas.
It is disputed.
And there is no contradiction, Dennis,
it is
between... Let me finish. If we have nuclear proliferators around the world that potentially can place a nuclear weapon into the hands of terrorists...
Secretly and without fingerprints, he could provide one of his hidden weapons to terrorists.
He's President Bush's ninth cousin once removed. Cheney's cousin Barack Obama is also Bush's 11th cousin.
Discovered is that Dick and Barack Obama are 8th cousins.
What?
Is that an amazing thing?
That old Beach Boys song, Bomberan. Bom, bom, bom.
When I search John McCain on YouTube, the biggest thing that comes up is you singing Bomb, 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 Iran. 744,000 hits, in case you haven't checked it recently. Are you proud or embarrassed of that?
I'm proud.
They would establish a theocracy on this earth.
If you think you're going to engage the United States military, then be prepared that the next thing you see will be the gates of hell.
Let us never kid ourselves. We are in a world war.
The year is 1917, and Representative Oscar Callaway enters a disturbing statement into the U.S. Congressional Record. The statement reveals why J.P. Morgan interests hired 12 high-ranking news managers. The 12 were asked to determine the most influential newspapers in America. They were to figure out how many news organizations it would take to control generally the policy of the daily press of the United States. The 12 found it was only necessary to purchase the control of 25 of the greatest papers. An agreement was reached. The policy of the papers was bought, and an editor was placed at each paper to ensure that all published information was in keeping with the new policy. Soon, that policy would be defined by a front group formed by J.P. Morgan and his colleagues. In fact, Morgan's personal attorney was founding president of the organization, the Council on Foreign Relations. Today, the CFR maintains that its goal is to increase America's understanding of the world. However, the actual objective of this highly exclusive club is revealed by the rare admissions of the insiders themselves. In the early 60s, a Georgetown University professor collects information for a book favorable to the network of powerful men who founded the CFR. For 2 years, Professor Carroll Quigley is allowed to examine the confidential papers and secret records of this network. Quigley reveals that these men aim to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. In short, they seek total and quiet control. of the entire world. And the CFR is their most visible conduit for carrying out that agenda. CFR members include America's wealthiest tycoons, as well as the highly placed elite in government, academic institutions, tax-exempt foundations, and the establishment media. Ruling Class Journalists, written by Richard Harwood, describes the CFR membership as the ruling establishment in the United States. The Washington Post article boasted that news reporters who are CFR members do not merely analyze and interpret foreign policy for the United States, they help make it. Who are these policymakers? Many of their faces are familiar. NBC's Tom Brokaw, CBS's Dan Rather, ABC's Barbara Walters, Jim Lehrer of PBS, William F. Buckley of National Review, media mogul Rupert Murdoch, owner of the giant multifaceted News Corporation. These media heavyweights, and many others like them, are members of the CFR. Powerful corporations are also invited to become members. At the close of the 20th century, CFR influence presided over far-reaching consolidations of media control. In 1995, CFR members Michael Eisner of Disney and ABC's Thomas Murphy merged their media empires. Soon after the merger, the Disney-ABC empire becomes a CFR corporate member. In the year 2000, the world's largest internet service provider, America Online, joins forces with Time Warner, one of the world's largest news organizations. The CEOs favoring the move are CNN's Thomas Johnson and Time Warner's Gerald Levin, both CFR members. Once again, another media giant is created under the shadow of CFR influence. Today, an elite handful of individuals define the agendas that are supported by the empire of establishment news.
Well, once in a while their name pops into the news, but very seldom you get them all together. I'm going to take a few moments. This might be boring, but I think for the record, everyone needs to be familiar with the names, some of the prominent names, who are members of this outer ring of a secret society. Let's start with the presidents of the United States. Herbert Hoover, Dwight Eisenhower, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, James Carter, George Bush Sr., and William Clinton. JFK once said that he was a member of the CFR, but nowhere can you find him on the membership rolls. So I guess he was a wannabe, but didn't quite make it in. But he actually said that he thought he was a member. And of course, the presidential candidates, John Kerry and Vice President Richard Cheney, are members of the CFR. Secretaries of State. This is a very important position for this group because it's even more important than the President. The President can be controlled by the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and all of his cabinet members who are pretty much appointed for him. You know, he doesn't appoint, presidents don't appoint their cabinet members from their own private telephone directory, you know. They're not even in their book. They're told who to appoint. Anyway, here are the Secretaries of State, perhaps the most important position in the United States government as far as the CFR is concerned. Dean Rusk, Robert Lansing, Frank Kellogg, Henry Stimson, Cordell Hull, E.R. Stettinius, George Marshall, Dean Acheson, John Foster Dulles, Christian Herter, Dean Rusk, William Rogers, Henry Kissinger, Cyrus Vance, Edmund Muskie, Alexander Haig, George Shultz, James Baker, Lawrence Eagleburger, Warren Christopher, William Richardson, Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, and of course, Condoleezza Rice. Did we leave anybody out? I don't think so. Now, Secretaries of Defense, also very important. James Forrestal, George Marshall, Charles Wilson, Neil McElroy, Robert McNamara, Melvin Laird, Elliot Richardson, James Schlesinger, Harold Brown, Caspar Weinberger, Frank Colucci, Richard Cheney, Les Aspin, William Perry, William Cohen, and Donald Rumsfeld. Directors of the CIA, pretty important. Walter Smith, William Colby, Richard Helms, Alan Dulles, John McCone, James Schlesinger, George Bush Sr., Stansfield Turner, William Casey, William Webster, Robert Gates, James Woolsey, John Deutsch, William Studeman, George Tenet, Porter Goss, and Michael Hayden. Now, some better-known corporations with CFR members at the board of directors or chief executive levels, where they dominate these huge corporations. It's quite a list. I had to trim this down, believe it or not. Here are just a few. Atlantic Richfield Oil Company, AT&T, Avon Products, Bechtel Construction Group, Boeing Company, Bristol Myers Squibb, Chevron, Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, Consolidated Edison of New York, Exxon, Dow Chemical, DuPont Chemical, Eastman Kodak, Enron, Estee Lauder, Ford Motor, General Electric, General Foods, Hewlett-Packard, Hughes Aircraft, IBM, International Paper, Johnson & Johnson, Levi Strauss & Company, Lockheed Aerospace, Lucent Technologies, Mobil Oil, Monsanto, Northrop, Pacific Gas and Electric, Phillips Petroleum, Procter & Gamble, Quaker Oats, SBC Yahoo, Shell Oil, SmithKline Beecham Pharmaceuticals, Sprint Corporation, Texaco, Santa Fe Southern Pacific Railroad, Teledyne, TRW, Southern California Edison, Unicol, United Technologies, Verizon Communications, Warner Lambert, Weyerhaeuser, and Xerox, to mention just a few. Now, in the media, also very important in controlling the thinking processes of the American people. We find CFR members in the management and operational positions at the Army Times, Associated Press, Association of American Publishers, Barron's, Boston Globe, Business Week, Christian Science Monitor, Dallas Morning News, Detroit Free Press, Detroit News, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Los Angeles Times, New York Post, San Diego Union Tribune, Times Mirror, Random House, W.W. Norton and Company, Warner Books, American Spectator, Atlantic, Harper's Farm Journal, Financial World, Insight, Washington Times, Medical Tribune, National Geographic, National Review, New Republic, New Yorker, Newsday, Newsmax, Newsweek, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Reader's Digest, Rolling Stone, Scientific American, Times Warner, Time, U.S. News and World Report, Washington Post, ABC, CBS, CNN, NBC, PBS, RCA, the Walt Disney Company, and, of course, Rupert Murdoch. Media personalities, the talking heads, include David Brinkley, Tom Brokaw, William Buckley, Peter Jennings, Bill Moyers, Dan Rather, Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, Katie Couric, and Andrea Mitchell, who was the wife of Alan Greenspan, former chairman of the Federal Reserve System. Of course, Alan is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Labor unions and with CFR members in key positions include AFL-CIO, United Steelworkers of America, United Auto Workers, American Federation of Teachers, Bricklayers and Allied Craft, Communication Workers of America, Union of Needle Trades, and Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers. All the big ones. In the tax-exempt foundations and think tanks, the number of CFR members in controlling positions is 443. Some of the better-known names are the Sloan and Kettering Foundation, Aspen Institute, Atlantic Council, Bilderberg Group, Brookings Institute, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, Carnegie Foundation, Ford Foundation, Guggenheim Foundation, Hudson Institute, John and Catherine MacArthur Foundation, Mellon Foundation, Rand Corporation, Rhodes Scholarship Selection Commission, Rockefeller Foundation, and Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Trilateral Commission, and the UN Association. In the universities, the number of CFR members who are or have been professors, department chairmen, presidents, or board members is 563. My last count. Could be different today, probably more. In the financial institutions such as banks, the Federal Reserve, stock exchanges, and brokerage houses, the number of CFR members with controlling positions is 284. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that gives you an idea. We could go into other areas, but bear in mind that the total membership of this group is about 4,000 people. Now, there are a lot of churches in your hometown that have memberships equal to or larger than that. And wouldn't it be curious if you were to discover that the members of that one church held all of these positions in society? Wouldn't you be curious as to what's going on? But first you'd have to know about it. And how would you know about it if the channels of communication by which you might be informed of it are also controlled by these same people? You see the magnitude of the problem we face. I'd like to emphasize that the CFR is not the inner core of a secret society, but it's at least 2 rings out. Now, what does that mean? That means that most of those people in the CFR are not aware of the history I'm giving you today. They have no inkling of it. Probably if they did know it, they'd be impressed. They wouldn't be shocked because, boy, we're on the inside of a very powerful group. Most of these people, I think, look at this as sort of a high-powered ultimate employment agency. They know that if they're invited into this group, and you have to be invited, that they've got it made. Once your name is on that list, you never have to worry about a job again, because the New World Order people are constantly looking for reliable servants to their cause. And these people have been selected not because they're evil people at all, or because they've got the grand vision of global government, although some of them do, but most of them just go along with the idea. They're open to it. They like it. And so they're dependable. And that's how they get in. So these people are not, most of them, at the inner core of a secret society. They're just opportunists. Now, there are 3 things we have to understand about this group. First of all, they're not partisan. The names I read to you have nothing to do with Republicans versus Democrats. You find them equally located in both political parties. These people laugh at anyone who takes seriously a political party. They laugh at all of these people campaigning out there for Republicans or Democrats. This has nothing to do with that. Secondly, they are elitists. They intend to rule for our own good, of course. And thirdly, the method by which they intend to rule is called democracy. We're back to that word. Democracy. They want democracy. Now that presents a problem. How is it possible for these people to rule mankind absolutely and still allow democracy, where people vote and determine things through the ballot box? There's no problem with that in their book. All they have to do, they say, is just control the elections. Allow people to vote so long as they don't vote for anything significant. We'll make all the important decisions and let them vote for the unimportant things so they get the sensation of participating in their own political destiny. They'll be happy. Just keep them out of the way. Let them have their fun and games. Let them have their bumper stickers and their straw hats. Let them go to the conventions and let them fight with each other out there. Candidate against candidate, but we own them all, so what difference does it make? You see? You're getting the picture. Now, Quigley himself described this in very approving terms. He likes that idea. In his book, this is what he says. This is in, I've forgotten which book it is now, but it's right. Let's see, it's probably the big thick one. Here's what he said. The national parties and their presidential candidates, with the Eastern establishment assiduously fostering the process behind the scenes, moved closer together and nearly met in the center with almost identical candidates and platforms. Although the process was concealed as much as possible by the revival of obsolescent or meaningless war cries and slogans, often going back to the Civil War. The argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideals and policies, one perhaps of the right and the other of the left, is a foolish idea, acceptable only to the doctrinaire and academic thinkers. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical, so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound or extreme shifts in policy. either party in office becomes in time corrupt, tired, unenterprising, and vigorless. Then it should be possible to replace it every 4 years, if necessary, by the other party, which will be none of these things, but will still pursue with new vigor approximately the same basic policies. And there you have it. Does it sound familiar? Yes. This is the system that we have been living under, ladies and gentlemen, since World War I. Now, what are these basic policies? The creation of the New World Order based on the model of collectivism. That's it. Everything else is secondary. You can have fiscal responsibility, you can have wars, no wars, as long as you're moving constantly in that same direction. That's the same basic policy that they demand from all candidates and the two major political parties.
The secret is simply the fact that certain of their members worship Lucifer, and that they keep that secret from the overwhelming majority of their own members, and certainly the public is never to know this fact if they can help it. And the evidence to support that conclusion is ample, but only to one who cares enough to look for it. The problem with most people is they don't care enough to look for anything. So why the secrecy? The secrecy is because, folks, the real secret of Mystery Babylon is how to control everyone else. And if they reveal these secrets, they won't have the control, for it'll be in the hands of everyone. That is the greatest secret of the secret societies. And I can tell you now that most of us have been living in fantasy land for all of our lives. We don't even know anything near what the truth of any matter is. We must begin an honest search.
Now Osiris has as a symbol an eye, and that eye, of course, is the sun. And this eye represents the son of the underworld.
Quote, the arcana, defined as being a secret or hidden knowledge of the ancient mysteries, were never revealed to the profane, defined as those not initiated into the inner mysteries, except through the media of symbols. You're going to find, folks, that symbols mean more than you will ever begin to understand unless you waded deep into the stream of the Mystery Babylon, as I have.
The Bilderberg Group is named after the Bilderberg Hotel in Oosterbeek, Holland, where it first met. Its founders were Joseph Rettinger, a Polish emigre with social democratic ideas, and Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. The annual meetings that it has held since then have been regarded as true milestones in international politics. For the occasion, each country sends 2 guests, one of whom is conservative, the other liberal. According to Prince Bernhard, the group was created as an entity destined to fortify the North Atlantic Unit, to stop Soviet expansionism, and to promote cooperation and the economic development of the countries of the West.
Sometimes to better understand an organization, you need to know more about the people who work for it. There are 2 interesting facts that question the integrity of the founder of the Bilderberg Group. Firstly, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands was an active member of Hitler's SS in his youth. Second, he had to stop heading the meetings in 1976 after being involved in the Lockheed scandal related to the purchase of fighter jets. On that occasion, Lockheed was found to have bribed Japanese, Dutch and Italian officers.
The Nazi background of Prince Bernhard did not stop the Bilderberg Group from being supported by Social Democrats, or by the Rothschild Bank, or the Rockefellers, both of Jewish origin. Other early sponsors included the Wallenbergs, owners of Electrolux and Ericsson in Sweden. All of them still actively participate in the annual general meetings of the group, either directly or through their representatives.
These are royalty, Fortune 500, elected politicians, many of them breaking the law to be there. That's why they're covering their faces up, because for decades the media wouldn't admit this was real.
After overcoming the tests, the blindfold is removed, and he receives the light. Finally, he takes an oath to the great architect of the universe. over the Book of Constitutions. A Bible with a set square and a compass on top are also used. Because Freemasons do not deny the existence of God, they simply reject ecclesiastical institutions. The oath is written on a paper that is later burned. When he receives the light, the candidate is initiated, and the brethren point at him with swords to invest him with positive energies. In some rites, the initiate also receives a sword to symbolically defend himself, to protect the lodge, to attack his enemies, and, curiously enough, to avenge the murder of the last great master of the Knight Templar.
Both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction that he's taking the country. We can do a better job, and I intend to do it.
You were both in Skull and Bones, a secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it. What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the website.
Number 322?
Take a look. No, I'm not going to lose.
The government of the world's only superpower is packed with bonesmen. George W. Bush named 11 bonesmen officials in his first government. Add to this various senators, congressmen, and chief justices, directors of the CIA, the Federal Reserve, and directors of banks such as J.P. Morgan Chase and Morgan Stanley Dean Witter. The American media is little different. Among others, Time and Newsweek magazines, in theory competitors, were both founded by bonesmen. The oldest and most influential families also belong to this select club. Bush, Bundy, Harriman, Lord, Phelps, Rockefeller, Taft, Whitney. All of them have undergone the odd ritual of initiation. All have spilled their darkest secrets. All have been ritually humiliated in front of their peers. And all of them owe loyalty to the order. It is estimated that there are some 800 bonesmen alive today, around half of them active and in key positions in the American economy and political establishment.
There are plenty of reasons to be shocked just by what we have learnt so far. This is a secret society founded by an alleged drug lord that counts among its members people who have financed the Nazis. Their members meet in a bunker supposedly full of stolen skeletons, and among its brethren we find no less than the president of the most powerful country on earth, and also his main political contender. And Skull and Bones is not the only secret society that appears to be pulling the strings of world power. There are at least 2 other organizations who are suspected of foul play, ranging from economic manipulation to attempting to achieve world control. They are the Bilderberg Group and the mysterious Council of Foreign Relations.
To be allowed to join the select 4,200 members the CFR has today, it is mandatory to be American, or to be about to obtain American citizenship. The Council is loaded with top executives of financial institutions, powerful industry leaders, and mass media executives. Academics and scholars, high-ranking military personnel, politicians, public officers, deans of universities and research centres are also welcome. Among CFR's most renowned members are David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, Hungarian-American billionaire George Soros, Supreme Court Judge Stephen Breyer, Low CBS Network's President Lawrence A. Tisch, former US Secretary of State General Colin Powell, General Electric's former chairman and CEO Jack Welch, current US Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, W. Thomas Johnson, President of CNN, and Katharine Graham, President of the Washington Post, Newsweek, International Herald Tribune Group. That's not to mention Alan Welsh Dulles, founding father of the CIA, and banker Paul Moritz Warburg, who was born in Germany and emigrated to the United States, where in 1913 he drew up and promoted the legislation that would create the Federal Reserve Bank. This is the American Central Bank, whose capital is not public, as would normally be expected, but is instead in the hands of private banks.
The Federal Reserve is not the only institution related to the CFR. The International Monetary Fund behind me and the World Bank close by were both created by CFR members. These 3 organizations control most of the world's capital, as well as distribution and aid policies. That is to say, they decide who wins and who loses.
Both the IMF and the World Bank have come in for some heavy criticism over many years for their lousy management of world crises, when instead of acting like last resort moneylenders, as their mission states, they became involved in dictating the macroeconomic policies of deeply indebted nations, drowning them in more and more debt. This policy had catastrophic results for countries such as Brazil, Argentina, Turkey, and Mexico. Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel laureate for economics, has repeatedly attacked the performance of the fund, suggesting that it was the true cause of many of the aforementioned crises. This cannot be brushed off as hearsay, since Stiglitz was chief economist and senior vice president of the World Bank from 1997 to 2000. In other words, an insider.
If we observe how the price of medical supplies generates gigantic profits for those who produce them, and at the same time kill millions of people who cannot afford to buy them, if we stop to think about the irreparable damage that multinational corporations carry out in the so-called third world countries, if we study the mechanisms of usurious loans of the world banking system that cyclically provoke crises that sink entire countries below the poverty line. It's worth asking, is economic war more effective than conventional war when it comes to achieving world power?
Oh, thank you very much, Richard, and I am delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, I guess, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the Council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the Council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future. I mean, Richard just gave what could be described as a mini version of my remarks in talking about the issues that confront us. But I look out at this audience filled with not only many friends and colleagues, but people who have served in prior administrations. And so there is never a time when the inbox is not full. Shortly before I started at the State Department, a former Secretary of State called me with this advice: don't try to do too much. And it seemed like a wise admonition if only it were possible. But the international agenda today is unforgiving. 2 wars, conflict in the Middle East, ongoing threats of violent extremism and nuclear proliferation, global recession, climate change, hunger and disease, and a widening gap between the rich and the poor. All of these challenges affect America's security and prosperity, and they all threaten global stability and progress. But they are not reason to despair about the future. The same forces that compound our problems, economic interdependence, open borders, and the speedy movement of information, capital, goods, services, and people, are also part of the solution. And with more states facing common challenges, we have the chance and a profound responsibility to exercise American leadership to solve problems in concert with others. That is the heart of America's mission in the world today. Now, some see the rise of other nations and our economic troubles here at home as signs that American power has waned. Others simply don't trust us to lead. They view America as an unaccountable power, too quick to impose its will at the expense of their interests and our principles. But they are wrong. The question is not whether our nation can or should lead, but how it will lead in the 21st century. Rigid ideologies and old formulas don't apply. We need a new mindset about how America will use its power to safeguard our nation, expand shared prosperity, and help more people in more places.
Gunplay has talked about and tweeted about the Illuminati, referring to his inner circle, his entourage, as the Bilderberg Group. Gunplay, perhaps best known for allegedly pulling a gun and assaulting his accountant, seen here in this security footage, after his accountant informed him of how much money he owed in taxes. The charges were dropped after the accountant would not cooperate with authorities and would not testify. Gee, I wonder why. Gunplay, the same rapper who got into a fight at the BET Awards in 2012 with 50 Cent's entourage, and then said that he wanted to kill every member of the G-Unit crew. In an interview with Vice through their music outlet Noisy, he was giving an interview when he was asked, tell me about your company. And he answered, the Bilderberg Group. That's my company. I'm starting it from the ground up, and I'm trying to build an empire. Hopefully one day the Bilderberg Group will be as real or as big as the real Bilderberg Group. The interviewer said, wait, you think the Bilderberg Group is real? It shows how much the interviewer knows. You know, Vice did a whole article ridiculing the Bilderberg Group's meeting and the thousands of protesters that attended the 2013 Bilderberg protest. So here's this idiot that says, the interviewer, wait, you think the Bilderberg Group is real? And Gunplay answers, yes. All you can do is inform yourself, because you can't do nothing about it. I don't think no man should have that much control, but it is what it is. It's a grim reality. Embrace it and inform people of what's going on. That's the only thing you can do. The interviewer then asks again, what does the Bilderberg Group control exactly? To which Gunplay answers, they control everything. From wars to weather, everything. It gets real deep, man. That's one of those things I try to fill my head with knowledge about. Who are the puppet masters? You stumble on one thing, you stumble upon another thing, and you just open up a can of worms. You can try to tell everybody, but they're looking at you like, what? The interviewer continues, do you think any rappers are in the Bilderberg Group? Rick Ross has a line where he says, I'm getting money, I must be Illuminati. Gunplay answers, the Bilderberg Group is nothing like that. You won't find any celebrities in that. What about the Illuminati then? That's theirs. Illuminati is like a mind frame. It's to control and watch over society, to make everything one. They've been doing it since the beginning of time. Basically, when man started to have 2 cents in their head, there were a lot of great minds back in the day. I couldn't fathom what they were thinking. Once they put that into motion, they can't even hide it no more, Gunplay says. It's already too late because we've already been programmed on the channel they want us to be on. It is what it is, he says. You got to embrace it and inform the public. Inform the people. Inform the ones you love because it's going down. Surprisingly informative, surprisingly accurate. In a world of Illuminati wannabes and Illuminati posers, people like Pig Ross, Little Wanker, Kanye Wanker, Kanye West, all of these Illuminati posers that are paying homage to their Illuminati masters. I mean, at least Gunplay is trying to inform people that they're evil. He himself needs to kind of work on his character. Gunplay living up to, trying a little too hard to live up to his name there. Getting into fights and, according to this security footage, pulling a gun on his accountant because he just was upset at finding out how much, income tax he had to pay to the government. Gunplay also tweeted about the Sandy Hook incident, some very controversial tweets, which he later deleted. Some websites, BET and XXL magazine, picked it up, where they have the headline, Gunplay says the government was behind the Sandy Hook shooting. Okay, where the rapper here tweeted out, government killed them kids to take our guns away. Another 9/11. Don't get it twisted. Okay, and then he tweeted out again, y'all are all sheeple for thinking the government ain't got a hand in every crisis since the Great Depression, he says. Now, he later deleted the tweets. Obviously, probably a big fan of the conspiracy genre. So as much of a, kind of a shady character that Gunplay is, hasn't quite broken through to the mainstream yet. I'm sure desperately trying to become a part of the mainstream media machine. This is his mug shot here. But, the guy is living up to his name. I mean, at least instead of just posing like a gangster like Rick Ross, much to Gunplay's credit, he is, playing with guns, assaulting people with guns, robbing people, allegedly. So there you have it, some interesting news about Gunplay. It'll be interesting to see if he, while waiting in the wings, one day gets promoted to the mainstream. Thanks for watching. I'm Mark Dice. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're new. Check out some of the previous videos. Check out the playlist. I've done a lot of work on the Illuminati wannabe pop stars. And if you want to know about the real Illuminati, want to know about the real Bilderberg Group, the billionaire banksters, the media moguls, the money masters, the Federal Reserve, how these people manipulate the media, Operation Mockingbird, the unclassified, uncovered program in the 1970s, where it was proved that $1 billion a year in today's dollars were being spent in the 70s, being paid off to all the major heads and editors of the media to act as gatekeepers and propagandists. I urge you to just check out my books on Amazon.com. Check out the Illuminati Facts and Fiction. I've already separated the facts and the fiction, assembled the pieces of the puzzle. I could save you countless hours of distractions and being duped by disinformation if you would just simply get the book. Not available in stores, in paperback on Amazon.com or your ebooks, ebook readers on Kindle, Nook, iBooks, and Google Play. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned because there's more videos.
A senior fellow at the CFR has found the cure for Ebola, and it's Obamacare. David Knight.
Yeah, this is pretty amazing. And this kind of goes along with the press conference that Kit Daniels wrote the story about. They had a press conference today saying, don't worry, we're going to send these soldiers who really, I have a question as to what their mission is. Military men have a question as to what their mission is, into harm's way in direct contact with Ebola. But don't worry, because they're going to have careful reintegration once they return to the U.S., presumably the same way that they're reintegrating this nurse that they told she could go back to work as a healthcare worker after 7 days after she was exposed to this Ebola patient. But we see that this is a full offensive. There's an article in Stars and Stripes, and this was from Laurie Garrett. She is a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, and the headlines says, Obamacare may hold the key to saving the U.S. from Ebola. Now, don't worry, soldiers, if you go to Africa and you get Ebola, Obamacare and the VA have your back. That's essentially the bottom line here. She pushes back against what she calls false claims that the virus has spread through the air between monkeys housed in a military facility in the 90s. We talked about that earlier. We had quotes from the scientists who were actually there, but she apparently believes otherwise. And then she talks about how in Hong Kong, when they forced quarantine, they still got it. The question is, not whether it was 100% effective, but whether it lowered the spread of the disease. But this is the key takeaway article. This is how she finishes it. She says, America's special vulnerability to Ebola is its limitations on access to health care. So in times of contagion, societal risk rises with every uninsured or underinsured individual who struggles to work or go off to school with a fever, avoiding bankrupting visits to health providers. One doesn't have to have a political position up or down on Obamacare to recognize that it can solve this problem. So we have infinite resources where we can take care of everyone in America and everyone in the world. If they just come here, Obamacare will save them.
But, I mean, they couldn't even take care of one Ebola patient. They sent him home. They were trained for Ebola, yet it completely failed them. And again, nurses everywhere protesting that these hospitals are not prepared for admitting people potentially exposed to Ebola. So God knows how Obamacare is going to help a situation where, 40% of the people who've got this virus have died.
You are watching the best of the Alex Jones Show, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Watch live at Infowars.com/show or become a member of InfoWarsNews.com and help us take resistance to the next level.